Welcome to the Grace and the Chaos podcast. It's a podcast of real life insights from parents of children with special needs. I'm Dr. Ryan Rush, and I'm joined by my friend and co-host, Dr. Chris Sneller. Yes, we both have PhDs, but more importantly, we're dads who live this out every day in our own homes. And honestly, nobody in our families care about those PhDs.
No,
really,
they don't.
Chris, we haven't talked about it on here. But I always said, when I was getting it, I said, you know, one of the great things about this is, Lana, one time we're going to be having, not an argument, but let's say a firm discussion.
Yes.
You know, after I have this.
You're a pastor. You never have arguments.
No, but let's say this happened. And I'm looking forward to that time. I can just say, Lana, you're just going to have to trust me because I'm a doctor.
There you go. There you go.
Yeah.
I don't use that line in my home. I'll let you use it in the rest.
It hasn't
home.
worked yet. So anyway, glad you're here, man.
Ryan, it's great to be with you. This Grace and the Chaos podcast really allows us to share conversations with some amazing families. Yeah. And so Shoby, Dolly, we're so thankful that you're with us today to share some of your story. We realize that we all have been given some unique struggles. Yeah. But God has also blessed us with much grace in the midst of that chaos to really see his presence with us. So we're really excited to hear your story today. So like I mentioned, this is Shoby and Dolly John, and we're going to start by just having you share a little bit about yourselves, about your background and how you met. So that's where we'd like to start.
All right.
Yeah, no ladies first?
Okay.
Well, I'm Shoby, and I am the youngest of three boys born in India, but moved in the early 70s as a young boy to Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Okay. Grew up there until mom said it is just absolutely too cold walking in the snow to work. Wow. And came home one day and said to Dad, we need to move south, please. Anywhere south. So fortunately it was Texas.
Great.
And a few years later we got down to Texas in the early 80s. I'm one of three boys. Youngest of three boys. And so I grew up in Houston after that and went to school at the University of Houston. Go Cougs.
Yeah. All right. Big win this weekend.
NCAA finals, right? And I grew up here, and Dolly and I actually met in church. I attended a local church in Houston. She attended the same denomination, but a local church in Dallas, Fort Worth. And when our churches did conferences in Texas, we got a chance to get to know each other.
All right. Okay.
Yeah. But she was a little bit, maybe honestly, she was way beyond my league. But one year I got the courage to pursue her, and that was when I was about 22. We got married in 1994.
Great.
And we moved Dolly from Dallas, Fort Worth down here to Sugar Land, and we started our family in Sugar Land, Texas.
Great.
Awesome.
Yeah, and so we attended Sugar Creek Baptist for a number of years.
Wonderful church.
Great church. We grew our family, our girls, and Jonathan, our son, there in a wonderful community, homeschool community. Yeah. Great folks there. But the Lord called us away from Sugar Creek to Kingsland about a year ago. They had great programs, but their special needs ministry went to about 14 or 15 years old.
Right.
Mm-hmm. So after sitting at home, kind of pining about not being able to get a class for him, I think the Lord just sort of pushed us out and said it's okay to move forward. And we got to know about Kingsland through Hannah, who served here at Kingsland, the worship ministry, and we heard a lot of great things about it and realized that it was an incredible special needs program here.
Yeah, for those who don't know who we're talking about, Hannah's their daughter, who is kind of famous around here because she served quite a bit, incredible voice.
Well, she set the foundation for us.
That's right.
And we feel like we got to know the church before we even got here.
Through her.
Yeah, through her. So we made that trek here last year, and it's been wonderful. Jonathan loves the special needs ministry. Fred, Holly, and all. Mm-hmm. We've got plugged into a Connect group class, Maranatha, and so here we are.
That's so cool.
My name is Dolly John, and you've heard most of my intro right there. We have three children: Hannah, Sarah, and Jonathan. And let's see, I was also born in India, but I was older when I came. I was about 12. And we settled in the DFW area, so we've been there most of my growing up years were there. It was only, and then went to school at UNT. And after working a few years, we met at church and got engaged, got married, moved here, and started a family here. And my desire has always been to be a stay-at-home mom, but had to go to school because of culture, pressure, just had to get a degree kind of thing, but was blessed to stay at home right before Hannah was born. Was able to stop working and was able to be a stay-at-home mom.
That's great.
Okay. So how many children? 3?
We have 3.
Okay. And so now tell us how you entered into this special needs journey.
Well, you want me to start?
Sure.
Okay. Our special needs journey started with an adoption journey.
Okay.
So the Lord put on my heart to just check out and find out a little bit about adoption. We had I think we'd heard about it, but just didn't know enough. And so there was something going on at church. There was a meeting, and I wanted to go. It was just not the right time for our family to go that time. So a few months later, Shoby said, let's find out more about that. And I thought, okay, well, we're sort of now on the same page. Let's find out about that. And so we did, and before we knew it, really felt like the Lord was calling our family to adoption. And a year and a half later, we were in India picking up Jonathan.
Oh, wow.
And so it's a longer story, obviously, but did not know any of Jonathan's special needs at the time. We were told he was walking, he had taken a few steps, he was doing great. It was only afterwards. So we adopted him at 14 months.
Okay.
And once we brought him home, we noticed that he wasn't doing the things that they had told us that he was doing on his own. He would basically lay there in his crib and he would stare at the ceiling and be fixated on the ceiling fan or on his hands. So we knew something wasn't right, but he was too young at that time to be diagnosed with anything at 14 months. But our pediatrician just suspected it was probably autism, but she said we would have to just wait. He loved spinning things. He was very fixated on spinning things, but he wasn't verbal until he was 5. So we just weren't sure about this journey. So, but around 7 is when he was finally diagnosed as being on the spectrum. But till then, we were just still learning, his little idiosyncrasies, his little behaviors here and there. But he is great. He's very fun-loving. He is happy-go-lucky. He's always happy. Loves to be in the center of attention. Loves to be with people. So it has a great personality, and I think the Lord just knew that we needed that in our family, and so He placed him there. And so that's how our special needs journey started.
Amazing.
How old is Jonathan now?
I was going to ask the same question.
He's 17. He will be 18
Okay,
in just
awesome.
about 4 months.
Okay.
4 or 5 months, yeah.
Great. So in this journey with Jonathan joining your family, what have been some of the key challenges that you have faced as a family, and what's really surprised you the most in the journey?
Neither one of us really grew up around special needs or disabilities, so that was new.
Right.
We didn't know that when we adopted him, and so as it sort of developed in front of us, it was all completely new to us. And for that matter, adoption was new. So no one in our family, extended family, had done it. So everything was sort of brand new.
Yeah.
But I think probably the thing that was much of a surprise as he got older is that he needs attention frequently. So it's sort of like we're always on.
Right.
And
never
of course,
truly have a break. You always have
So
to
true. Wow.
care for him. and-
Yes, and I'm saying that mildly. Obviously, it's usually our brides, the mom that's at home and has to field most of that attention demand, right? But I see it, and I see the impact of that.
Yeah.
I would say the same. And initially, there were a lot of doctor's visits,
Right.
a lot of therapy visits, and so it was constant. There's something always going on. So, and even now with our older children out of the house, even it just feels like a lot of life is now revolves around them.
Right.
And their care and their needs. It's not a bad thing. It's just things have just shifted, and so you just have to
So true.
adapt to that. So.
Can I go down a little deeper in this? Like, this adoption and special needs wasn't something your family. So how have both your parents and your extended families responded, and how have your other 2 daughters responded to having a brother with special needs? How has the reaction response been from both sides?
Yeah, gosh, that could be a long conversation, but initially, parents are different and from different backgrounds. My mom, she was completely open, ready to do it. Dolly's mom, not so much.
Yeah.
And so it was just, there's a lot of things that I think people hear out there about adoption and then even about special needs, that it is demanding. It'll change the sort of the context of the family that you have. Some people even have different beliefs that that's not even, a biblical thing to do.
Right.
And so they come from that sort of background. But we felt together.
Yes.
We felt the conviction that the Holy Spirit had given us, and then God answered so many of the prayers. So we had no doubt in our mind that this is what we were called to do.
Right.
But over time, what we've seen is as we share our sort of muttering between each other, well, why can't they be more open to it?
Normal.
They have really come on board.
That's great.
That's awesome.
And it didn't take long.
Yeah.
They just had to witness, I think, God at work. In the midst of it.
Yeah. I think I mentioned to y'all, we have, in another episode of this podcast, we've told our story, but we have 3 biological sons and 3 adopted daughters, and 2 of our kids have special needs. And it's been exciting to see our family just learn to appreciate and understand that God has called us to do this. And I've loved to see my parents and my wife's parents really adopt our adopted daughters as their own, and there's no differentiation. There's just the same deep love they have for all of our kids. But it's a journey.
It is. That
takes time
indeed
to get to that point. But it's a blessing to have parents like that.
Right. Great insight. And Dolly, you implied something earlier that, you wonder, will your kids be the same or how will they respond? And the reality is none of our kids are the same because of it. It greatly enhances their lives, I think. They see the world differently. They see people differently.
It's true.
Because they have a disabled sibling.
Yes.
I mean, it's a fact. Our family's not the same as it was, right?
Indeed. And we saw that sort of progress. In the beginning, here are these 2 girls about age 12 and 8, and they want a little brother they could cuddle and dote on. And he was that way initially, but as Jonathan grew older, that's not his need.
Right.
So, they went through the bouts of not having that sort of big sister fulfillment, but they have also grown, and we've seen this journey of adoption and also special needs really play a part in who they are today.
Yeah.
And it came in the form of things like they were much more keenly aware of the needs of others over time, and service more service oriented.
Right.
Yeah.
And even Hannah has been greatly influenced in her field of study, bachelor's and master's, partly due to her experience with Jonathan.
That's amazing, for sure.
Yeah.
If you don't mind me,
please.
when we went to get Jonathan, we ended up adopting him from Calcutta, India, which is where my father's family is. And my father is no longer here, but we got they had not met Shoby, they had not met our children. So they got to meet our family. And then also they were trying to understand why we came all the way from America to adopt someone from India. And they're not unbelievers. So we had a chance to actually share with them that the Lord called us to do that. It's not a decision that we made, ourselves. And so it was a good time to.
Yeah, that truly was a significant thing because the value of life is different around the world for different reasons. And so they were just asking an honest question, like, why would you adopt someone else's child?
Wow.
So we said, boy, that's
amazing.
That's an invitation to share.
Sure.
So we did. And of course we don't know what where that went, but there was some chance to plant some seeds.
That's so cool. Yeah. So we've already sort of segued into this next question because you've been talking about some things that the Lord has shown you. But when you think about the lessons that kind of the Lord has shown you through being a special needs family, walking the journey you have, is there any lesson or lessons that rise to the top?
Yeah.
You want to go first?
Actually, why don't you I had something in mind, but go ahead if you don't mind.
I don't mind. I think lots of different lessons.
Okay.
And some that take some opportunity like
All
this
right.
to sort of reflect on. But one of the things is really that there's a lot of unknowns and uncertainty. And there are things that are not predictable that can cause trauma in the family as a result of whatever the unique issue is or the behavior that comes from a special needs child. And in our case, as Jonathan has gotten older into his teenagers, we have seen some more of those things that have occurred. And I don't know if we have the time to get into it, but I think it's suffice it to say there's some real behavioral issues when he is triggered, and sometimes it's a fight or flight response.
Right.
And so this is just the cold, candid truth here.
It's the reality.
This is the reality. It is very difficult for people to witness it, but let alone your family, your daughters, when you see that. And the first times that we saw it, it was really wow, what is going on? What is prompting this? How do we deal with this? And I think in the midst of that, I'm reminded of something I read in The Silence of Adam, Dr. Larry Crabb, which is just in the midst of the chaos of life. Sometimes the calling of the man is really just to kind of keep the family moving forward.
Yeah.
So when we face things like that, I had to honestly say, I don't know, honey. I don't know what to do, but we're going to be all right. Yeah. We're gonna move forward, and that's hard to do because we want to be able to provide answers and solve issues, right? But sometimes it's just simply saying we're going to take a step forward.
Okay, so to sort of rephrase what I'm hearing, you have learned to speak truth into the chaos, right? Or in the trauma moment to say someone needs to say what's true right here. We need to hear it out loud.
Yes.
Gosh, that's good.
Very much so. And in the same token, you talk about marriage relationship and 50-50, we bring equal things to the table, but you both know the reality is sometimes I'm at 20%.
Right.
Or Dolly might be.
Right.
And then we need to show up and fill in that extra 80%. So it is truly a partnership in that respect. There are days that I might be down. I just might be out of energy, just out of hope sometimes, just trying to figure out how to move forward and what does the future hold.
Right.
So, I've used the phrase, we are called as dads. We need to protect our family, provide for our family. But when you have a child with special needs, a lot of times you as a dad just feel impotent. Like you want to do something to help your family. And what do you do? So what are some things you have done in the midst of those moments just to help your family carry on and move on, to speak those words of truth? How have you, some of our listeners are probably in the midst of those moments right now.
Yep.
So how do you carry on in the midst when everything around you just seems crazy and you don't feel like you have any control over anything around when it comes to Jonathan's challenges?
You want to go?
Actually, I think you're better at answering that because my response during those challenging times is I want to run.
Yes.
I want it to disappear. I want the Lord to take away the challenge that's happening. But I don't know how single parents really do it, but because if we didn't have a spouse to help you and to walk you through that, it really is difficult. We had an incident the last 2 times we traveled. One was on our trip to Israel, and it happened at the airport, and it was so difficult. But the Lord is so gracious. He allows people, He allows things to just help you through that time. And when you can't see past that moment, what I've seen Shoby do is we're going to make it through this. We're gonna get there. We're gonna figure it out, and that just really gives hope. Because even in the midst of that, sometimes it's hard to see the Lord working through it.
Yes.
Until everything has resumed back to normal.
Right.
And that's why you need someone with skin on right there who's telling you it's going to be okay. I'm right here.
Right.
And so, so that how it's worked for me.
So true. Wow. There's so many layers of this conversation, but I think we need to address, first of all, there's a lot of, we all know anecdotally, a lot of special needs parents who are single and navigating this journey.
Yes.
We are for you and with you and praying for you. It also seems as though there's a lot of men who check out. And I think one of the reasons why is because we think we need to be fixers, and we can't.
We can't.
And so I'm going to plead with you right now, Dad, if you're listening to this, don't quit. Don't quit. You have to be the one to go first and speak truth into those moments. And it is amazing, Dolly, how God makes a way in those things. I just had a flashback about a year ago. We got on a plane in Nashville, having seen one of our daughters, older daughters, and Lily. I don't know why. She flies all the time, but she just, something about it triggered her, the temperature and the thing or whatever, and she just lost it. Well, rewind 15 minutes before, we're getting on a plane in Nashville, Tennessee. I passed her in Katy, Texas, and this little kid comes up to me in the waiting area and says, Pastor Ryan. And so I say hi. And so it turns out this family's on the plane. And
Wow.
And so Lana leans over. She says, this is another reminder. You can't ever mess around. You'll be found out, you know. So it happens all the time. So we laugh. We get on the plane. We're sitting on like row 11. Row 10 is this family.
Wow.
So when we're on the plane, Lily's punching the seat. I'm just trying to get not kicked off the plane.
Yeah.
And it's hard to even describe the stress in those moments. You know, you feel like everybody's watching you. You don't know what's going to happen. You don't want to be on the news. And then God puts a Kingsland family in front of us on the plane, you know.
Wow.
So we made it through, and God was good. But the Lord the Lord will get you through, right?
Yes.
And
Amen.
one of the ways is with each other. I'm glad that Lana and I rarely have the same bad day, you know, like we have bad days, but rarely the same bad day. So grateful for that.
Pastor Ryan, thanks for sharing that. And that actually, I'm glad you shared that
Yeah.
detail, because it's hard to share.
Yeah.
You know, we don't share that level of detail with a lot of people. But that's precisely what happened in that trip to Israel. we had a flight cancel from Houston. We got rerouted to Paris. We got to Paris, had only an hour to make a connecting flight to catch the next flight to Tel Aviv. We missed that flight. We had to stay overnight, we're sitting in the lobby trying to figure out flights. And then we decide that we were trying to get catch a boat in Haifa. We missed it, so we thought we'll get to Ephesus, and we'll get there. But the long story short, we had about 3 days of travel to try to get to Israel.
Extreme exhaustion.
And the average person, it would just create frustration and stress. So Jonathan had it by the time we got to Tel Aviv, and it's the same. It's a very similar scenario. He was just beyond any solace, and he was wired, and he lost control, and it's a major meltdown. It's a major meltdown. It was actually one of the first times that Hannah witnessed it, because she had moved out of the house for a period of time. So it was traumatic for her to see that. And it's a lot of punching, kicking, scratching, and it's truly fight or flight. He doesn't know what's going on, but he just perceives it as fighting.
Right.
And we have to just be patiently waiting through that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
I've heard the special needs journey described as it's not the life we expected. It's not the parenting journey we expected. It's not the trip to Israel that we expected. So in the midst of those challenges and disappointments and unmet expectations, how do you just stay present in the moment and not run? What do you do for one another? What are the little things that you do that really help and encourage one another in the midst of those moments?
I think for me, I'm reminded again that if I may not be the fixer or have the solution, but I have to help us in the moment to move it forward when there's a crisis. And so it's just sort of, I think God's empowered us as men to do that.
Yeah. And
so I lean into that, and it's a moment by moment thing.
You lean into it and do what?
Like number one, I'm praying in my mind.
That's
I am praying. I'm saying, Lord, help me.
You're desperate.
I am desperate.
Yes.
And I just think of when He says, "Call out to me,"
Yes.
and I say, sometimes it's just, Jesus, help me.
Mm.
And in that midst, I don't even know what happens sometimes as it unfolds, but there's silly things. There was one time where Jonathan lost it, and after everyone in the public is witnessing this, I think the Lord just gave me this thought: grab his hand and just run with him. And that immediately got him out of this sort of thrashing and kicking.
Yeah. Yep.
We ran. He started running. I started laughing out loud. He started laughing out loud, and before
It dropped.
it just dropped the tension down.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it may not ever be the same thing, but
Mm-hmm.
I am leaning in through prayer and then just asking the Lord to just kind of unfold this thing. Sometimes it comes through other people, like on the airplane. We had a great stewardess who we didn't say a word, but she observed the tension, and she came by and gave him a kit, a little, what are those wings?
Oh,
Wow.
yeah.
Yeah. So there are just little things like that. There was one time where somebody was, we were at a gate, and he was getting worked up, and he was beyond our control or his, and and they were asking for our passports, and I was trying to find it, and the lady finally just said, "Just go through."
Wow.
And we were the first in line, so that helped us. So there are just different things that
Amazing.
occur.
Shobi, that insight, though, I think is profound because Dolly has said just your presence and being there, but you have said, cry out to God and the simple prayer, Jesus, help. And I think God delights in those simple, desperate, honest prayers in those moments. And he gives us ideas like going for a little jog with our son that just is not in the proper frame of mind. So I love that story. It illustrates well crying out to God in dependence, trusting him, and just listening and doing what he calls us to do.
Indeed.
It's beautiful.
Indeed.
Yeah.
So as you think now and where you are in your special needs journey, if you could look back and tell your younger self anything, what would you tell your younger self related to this journey that you've been on?
How far back are we wanting to go?
Yeah,
What do you want
that's
to
a
do?
great
You want to say 25 or 30? 30?
Yeah. First couple years of marriage.
There you
let's
go.
say.
I would say when you're younger, you tend to be very inwardly focused. You're focused on yourself. So I would encourage, if I were to tell my younger self, to step out of who you are, where you are, to see the outside world. You tend to be protected. I grew up in a very protective home. So I was not exposed to adoption. I was not exposed to, even though in India, I have seen the poor. I have been around them. Here you just are not part of that. You just don't see it. So as we've done with our children, we've gotten them involved in serving, in going on mission trips, outside of just where you live, and being able to serve at church, being able to serve in the special needs ministry, and to be able to see that there is a hurting world. So that would be,
That's great. And that's why actually we're excited sometimes when we see young folks serving as volunteers. It's so desperately needed, but it also helps them just kind of open up their view of what's around them.
It's really good.
That's great.
Yeah, it's great. Absolutely.
Anything to add, Shobi? Anything you tell your younger self?
I think one of the things is we tend to explain sometimes too much to others and sort of apologize for our child's disability or the behavior that we might feel a little embarrassed about earlier in life. And I think I would tell my younger self that this is your child
Yes.
that God has
Right.
allowed you to have, and he has unique or she has unique makeup and giftings and bents, even negative things. They're all uniquely theirs.
Right.
And it's nothing to apologize for. Instead, to really just focus on what it is that they need. So what does that look like? How does that show up in a way to handle that is instead of going to a restaurant where we've eventually felt like, gosh, we can't even go to restaurants because Jonathan can't take the music. It's too loud.
Right.
There's too much noise. We collectively try to find a quieter restaurant.
Right.
Or when we get there, we're not going to apologize for him. We're going to just make adjustments. And some of those adjustments are things that we learn along the way. One of the big adjustments is we're saying, you know what, if that's too much, and we take input from our girls too, because they're adults and smart, we are now trying to invite folks to come over to our house.
Right. It's
great.
Which just opens up a whole nother dynamic of building friendships.
Man, I love that.
adapting.
So good. Okay. Some game shows have a lightning round toward the end of the show, and we're going to do that. Just a disclaimer. This is Chris's idea.
It is my idea.
I'm not
I
sure
own it.
about it yet. But
Come on,
that's
you've
a part
loved
of this
it. You've
thing.
loved it, except
So
when
we
I was
have to
asking
do-
you the questions.
That's
the
right.
one
Then
time.
I was a little uncomfortable. So I'm just telling you that in part to blame him in case it doesn't go well. But what I want you to do is just think about the first thing that comes to mind. They don't have to be profound questions as we get started. And Chris is going to pepper you with these questions now. All right, ready?
I shall. So, best book you have read recently?
Love Does by Bob Goff.
Praying Through the Names of God by Tony Evans.
Nice.
Excellent. Okay. Jonathan's favorite food.
He's an equal opportunity foodie.
Oh, how about that? All right.
But if he were to pick one, I think it'd be Whataburger chicken strips with gravy.
Come on. All right.
How often does he get Whataburger chicken strips with gravy?
It's been a while, but it used to be sometimes once a week, twice a week.
There you go. Right. Yeah.
3 times a week, 4
Yeah.
times a week.
I get it.
Okay, you have a 3-hour break, and you get a break from caring for Jonathan. What do each of you do during your 3-hour break?
Oh gosh, we probably go find something to do together.
Okay.
Or
All right, yeah.
something to do with some friends or family that we just, where we're just not anxious about Jonathan being with us. So
I like
I
that.
think that would.
Okay.
Dolly, I just want to brag on you for a
Yes,
second.
yes, you
I'm
should,
messing up
you
the
should.
because we had multiple programs in a row where the guy would say, "Hey, we want to be together," and the spouse would say, including my wife,
The wives would be like,
"Well,
want a
not
break.
so fast. I
Give me a
really just
nap.
love a
Give me
book.
Give me a
Be
bath.
alone." Like, wait a second. So proud of you right now. All right, yeah.
We'd love to hear, what is a unique skill or fascination that Jonathan has?
Oh gosh. Learning, he loves watching movies, so he'll pick out, movie lines and
Okay.
then drop them into conversations.
Okay.
That's how he has conversations, is basically a majority of them, about 99% of them are just lines.
He'll quote a movie line.
And what
How
are
about
some
that?
of the recent movies that he has?
Oh gosh.
Kung Fu Panda.
Kung Fu
not
Panda?
recent, but we kind of have on
Right, right.
repeat.
Okay,
Kung Fu
good.
Panda,
Sound
Sound
of-
of Music, Rapunzel, Ratatouille.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
There
he'll
you go.
grab hold of some key
Yep.
lines there.
Yes.
But he knows exactly where to insert them in conversations. So
There you
we're,
go.
we're like,
Amazing.
how
Yeah.
did he know that?
And
So-
and to go backwards a little bit, you
Right.
asked about sort of what are some things that practically that we do that
Yeah.
we've learned. We just have fun sometimes,
Sure.
so we'll kind of get into it. The girls especially will get into
Act out the different
act out some
scenes?
different scenes,
Good.
and end up laughing.
Okay, what soundtrack or what music is on repeat in your vehicles?
Frank Sinatra.
Frank Sinatra.
Yeah.
Nat
all right.
King Cole, he loves the
classics.
crooners. Yeah.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Nice.
And there's one special one. It's a lullaby CD by Michael Card. It's called
Yeah.
Come to the Cradle.
Yeah.
Oh,
That
nice.
When he's worked up, he needs to listen to that. So
Yeah.
I love that.
In fact, that is one of our tools when he does
Music.
We'll
Yeah.
put that particular track on, and we've got it
Interesting.
on all our phones, and it's immediately like a little bit of a bomb.
I haven't heard that album
Yeah.
in years.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah,
gonna go
that's-
pull it off on
it's a great one.
Spotify.
Well, that's
Okay.
cool. Okay, your favorite city in the world? What's the spot that you visited that you're like, oh, we loved this city?
We don't get to travel a whole
Yeah.
lot
We don't.
together.
Yeah.
For me, I've done some trips down for work.
Yeah.
Actually in Costa Rica, like Liberia, and I really enjoyed that.
Great.
But locally, I think Chapel. Don't laugh at us, Chapel Hill, Texas.
Chapel Hill, that's great.
Chapel Hill, Texas.
Yeah.
Nice
Okay,
and hilly
where's
near
that
Brenham.
near?
That's
Yeah.
near Brenham.
Okay,
Yeah,
all
like the home of Bluebell ice cream, but
All
it's
right.
a neighboring.
Right.
It's a beginning of hill country, Texas hill country.
Yeah, it's nice and
Absolutely.
rolling.
Hour and a half
hills
from
there.
Houston. Yep.
Okay, a little more serious. What is a future dream or a hope or desire that you have for Jonathan?
mine would be that he would be loved and he'd be taken care of. I think this is the one question I've really not wrestled with the Lord on Jonathan, except I've always wondered what's going to happen if he does call us both home because he cannot take care of himself. Of course, he has his sisters, but what would that care be like? I've been to those places where folks are left by themselves, and it's hard to see. And so that's always a question
Sure.
in my mind: who's going to take care of him like we do? But I know that the Lord was there before we got Jonathan. So then I have to land on that God's going to take care of him. Whatever that looks like, only the Lord knows. I
Wow.
don't know that. But
And maybe just to add to that, we've talked about this. It's obviously we're given responsibility to do things, but I think it's just that sort of phrase about God's sovereign and we can trust Him.
Yes.
Right.
But as much as we can do to be responsible for what He's given us to be responsible, we're going to try to do that.
I love that. Gosh, what a blessing. We need like parts 2, 3, 4,
We do.
and 5
A
of the
lot
John
of great
family.
insight here that we
I
can-
actually wrote down we need to come back and have a future episode called Dads in the Chaos, where we just have some dads around the table to
should.
talk about some of the
What do you
challenges.
do in the midst of the chaos?
Wow. But Dolly, what a blessing. Wow. Thank you guys so much for your insight, being with us. And thank you, the listener, for spending some time with us. We'd love to hear from you. So feel free to drop us a line. Listen, this podcast is brought to you by empoweredhomes.org. It's a wonderful resource of websites from our church, Kingsland, and everything on the website's free. So hope you'll check it out. We have lots of resources for every family, including those who are walking this journey with a special needs loved one. Thank you, Chris.
Ryan, great to be with you again. Thank you.
Okay, man. See you next time.
Okay, thanks.